The guards dragged Onyeka, Ifunanya, and Obina to the king's palace. When they got to the palace, the guards made them to sit on the ground. The king was already asleep, and so the head of guards took them to the palace prison, where mosquitoes and cold dealt with them that night. In the morning, the king sent for the chief priest, and he came. The king asked the guards to bring Onyeka and his family out so he could see them. The guards hurriedly brought them out. They sat on the ground with their hands tied with chains as though they had committed the worst crime in the world. The king stood from his throne. He looked Onyeka in the eyes and he said, "So it is true that your cursed son didn't slip from his mother's hands and died, Onyeka? So it is true that your wife conspired with her sister, who died mysteriously years ago, to hide this cursed son of yours? Ifunanya, you shouldn't have brought him back to the land. He should have remained in your sister's home. I am sure your sister died because of his cursed presence in her home. She called death upon herself. Have you seen what the presence of your cursed son has brought to this community? Animals have been dying, children dying as a result of hunger. We can't fetch water from the stream because it has turned to blood. Our young men can't pregnant their wives anymore. There is famine in the land, and the gods have been silent, all because of the cursed child you brought into the world. Onyeka, I am highly disappointed. There is suffering in this land, and everyone points fingers against you. You all will be taken to the evil forest to be killed at noon in order to appease the gods," the king said. The chief priest echoed, "Yes, they must be killed." Onyeka and Ifunanya, being helpless, cried and begged for mercy. Obina, who has been quiet, said, "Your royal majesty, the great king of our time, the wisest amongst other kings in our neighboring villages, the most envied. The gods have been with you, and they will continue to be with you. You have really spoken well, and that shows that you have the welfare of your people at heart. But I must correct this. I am not cursed, neither am I a calamity. Wise people don't talk with uncertainty. Did the gods ask you to kill me? Did you hear them? Did the gods say, I am the cause of the sufferings in this village? Wise people don't talk with uncertainty." On hearing this, the king and chief priest gasped in shock. "Are you saying I am foolish?" the king asked. Obina responded, "I never called anyone foolish. I have a mission in this land which is unclear to me yet. It is not for calamity, but it is for me to save my people and your people. Let the eyes of the gods go back to the gods and listen attentively." The king and chief priest marveled at the way Obina talked intelligently. The king asked, "Who are you and what is your mission?" Obina answered, "I have no idea yet, but I know I'm to save my people." The king asked the guards to take them back to the palace prison and forget about killing them till further notice. The next morning, the chief priest started shouting from his hut down to the king's palace. He was screaming, "The gods have finally spoken. The gods have talked. The gods have made everything clear. The gods have talked. The gods are wise. Oh, they have spoken." He asked the king to summon the elders and villagers because he wants to reveal the cause of the sufferings in the land. The guards brought out Onyeka and family from prison, and they sat on the ground. In the presence of everyone, the chief priest said, "Obina is not cursed. The gods spoke to me, but I wasn't attentive, neither did I hear them. When the gods were speaking to me, I was busy having domestic issue with my wife over who to eat the head of a chicken." Everyone laughed. They spoke, but I didn't hear. The gods told me last night when I consulted them that many years ago in the land of Umuchi, there lived a peaceful and prosperous tribe. The people were skilled farmers, expert fishermen, and revered hunters. Their lives were intertwined with the land, the forest, and the mighty palm trees that dotted the landscape. These palm trees were sacred to them, believed to be the bridge between the earth and the heavens. In this tribe, there was a man named Dai. He was strong, respected, and loved by all. His wife, Afia, was known for her wisdom, kindness, and beauty. Together, they had built a life filled with joy and abundance, owning a large piece of fertile land where they grew crops, raised animals, and harvested palm fruits. Dyke had two younger brothers, Egbuka and Kachi, who, though less successful than Dyke, were hardworking and trusted members of the community. One fateful day, as Dyke was climbing one of the tallest palm trees to harvest its precious fruit, disaster struck. The tree, ancient and weathered by time, cracked beneath his weight. The ground below seemed to tremble as Dyke fell, his body crashing against the rocks and earth with a terrible force. His brothers, who had been nearby, rushed to his side, but it was too late. Dyke was dead. The entire village mourned the loss of their beloved friend and brother. But for Egbuka and Kachi, the grief was overshadowed by a growing resentment. They were envious of Dyke's wealth, his land, his livestock, his influence, and they believed that with his death, they could claim it all for themselves. Afia, Dyke's wife, was beside herself with sorrow. She wept for her husband, but her grief soon turned to shock and disbelief when her brothers-in-law approached her with a cold demand. They wanted her to give up the land. They claimed that as the rightful heirs to Dyke's properties, they should inherit everything he had worked for. Afia, however, refused to hand over what was rightfully hers. She had been married to Dyke for many years, though her children all died, and she would not let his brothers strip her of what she had built with him. The brothers were furious. They believed that without Dyke, there was no reason for her to keep control of the land. The land, they argued, should belong to them, the blood relatives of Dyke. And so, in their anger and cruelty, they made a dark decision, one that would haunt the tribe for generations. One midnight, they took Afia and tied her hands, dragging her to the sacred burial ground where Dyke had been laid to rest. Despite her pleas and cries, they began to prepare a grave for her. They would bury her alive as a punishment for her refusal to surrender her husband's lands. But before they could complete their cruel task, Afia, desperate and heartbroken, let out a final, terrible curse. "May the earth turn against you," she cried, her voice shaking with fury. "May the winds refuse to carry your seeds. May the rivers dry and some turn to blood, and may the trees never grow in your land. May nature itself abandon you, and may you never know peace again. For killing me for my own sweat, I curse you and your generations. May all the negative things you can think of happen to you." Egbuka and Kachi, with hearts hardened by greed, ignored her words. They completed the burial, sealing her fate beneath the earth. The brothers returned to their home, their hearts light, believing that they had triumphed. But nature, it seemed, had heard Afia's curse. Years passed, and at first, everything seemed to go on as usual. The brothers took control of Dyke's land, and the tribe continued its way of life. But slowly, things began to change for Egbuka and Kachi. The brothers, once proud and wealthy, now found themselves struggling. Their land, once fertile and full of life, had become barren. The animals they had raised died after one another. They lost absolute everything. The two brothers were bothered. They went to the village native doctor to inquire on what had happened. The native doctor, after consulting the gods, told them about their brother's wife, whom they buried alive. Her spirit seeks vengeance. Until you both die, she will never rest. On hearing this, Egbuka and Kachi became scared and wanted a way forward and how such can be averted. None of them wished to die. They begged the native doctor to help them. They promised to give him a huge amount of money. But the gods are not in support of helping such wicked souls because they need to pay for their crimes. The native doctor, without hesitation, accepted their offers. He told them the only way the curse would avert and not harm them anymore is by chaining her remains, which is excavating her remains from the grave, chaining her skeleton and burying it back. That's the only solution. The two brothers nodded in agreement. The native doctor asked them to come back at midnight for the needful to be done. At midnight, the two brothers, led by the native doctor, went to her grave site. They exhumed her skeleton and tied it with strong chains. The native doctor made several incantations and afterwards buried the skeleton. By so doing, her spirit has been tied and she has no powers to torment them anymore. Months later, after doing this, all what they lost was recovered. They paid the native doctor hugely. The gods became very angry for their servant involved himself in what they hate. The gods killed the native doctor, Egbuka and Kachi. The rivers dried up. All the first sons and daughters of the land died mysteriously. Yam barns mysteriously caught fire. Animals died too. There was no rain in the land, and hardship was extremely much. They had not seen nor heard of such before. The people could not take it, and they all left the land to different locations just to survive. One of the sons of Egbuka migrated to this very land with his wife when it was still a thick forest and started a new life here. The calamity stopped and everything went well. They were blessed with children. Their children gave birth to children. Everywhere was populated and the lineage continued till we came to be as one full village. We are from the lineage of Egbuka, the greedy brother of Dyke. Egbuka reincarnated years ago with a crescent-shaped birthmark on his chest into the family of Onyeka as Ikena, but the gods knew his mission and asked for him to be killed. Otherwise, he would have killed a wealthy man in the land, buried his wife alive, and converted his properties onto his own just the way he did in his previous life. The gods averted such calamity from repeating itself. Of course, the sins of the fathers shall visit the children. The spirit of Afia is still restless, and the gods remembered her tears once again in our generation. That is why some of the rivers have dried up, some have turned to blood, animals dying, the heavens have refused to release rains, children and adults dying mysteriously, hunger in the land. I can keep mentioning, but there's no time anymore because we all know what we have been through. Afia's spirit seeks vengeance, and the gods are with her, said the chief priest as he concluded the ancient revelation of the cause of the calamity in the land. Everyone gasped in shock, and there was silence everywhere. Thank you for this great revelation, Ezemo. But why didn't your wife give you the head of the chicken the night the god spoke? You mean ordinary head of chicken made you lose attention? Common head of chicken blocked your ears? Oh, gods of our land, oh! Mazi Ekele joked and everyone laughed. Now that we have known the problem, what is the way forward? How can the curse be lifted? Asked Meziebe. Why is Obina having the cursed mark on his chest? Asked Mezi Onu. Eyes of the gods, what do we do now? I believe the gods have solutions, King Dimpa said. The gods are wise. They knew a day like this would come in, and so they brought Obina. Obina is destined to save us from the vengeance of Afia. Afia wanted the generations of the two brothers who killed her to wipe off. When she saw that Onyeka's wife was pregnant, she had her way and inscribed the mark on his chest to make people believe that the cursed child had reincarnated in order for us to kill him. By so doing, there would be no one to save the land from her vengeance. But thanks to the gods who saved our savior, the chief priest said. The king asked the guards to untie Obina and his parents. Obina stood from the ground, but not surprised because he already knew there's a great task ahead of him. The chief priest faced Obina and said, "The chosen one, I bring greetings from the gods. They have asked you to go to Umuchi, where Afia was buried, and remove the chains tied round her skeleton. Wash your chest where you have the birthmark and pour the water in a calabash. That same water, you will pour it on her bones. Apologize on behalf of our great forefathers who wronged her. By so doing, her anger will melt and the curses upon us will be lifted. It is only you who can do this. It will take you 7 days to get to Umuchi. Umuchi is now a forest because no one lives nor farms there. But the gods who have sent you will guide you." The following day, Obina went to Umuchi. It took him 7 days to get there. the gods directed him to the right paths, and he did exactly what he was asked to do. Immediately he did that, it rained heavily, the rivers returned to its normal state, and everything became normal. It was as though a magic had happened in the land. He returned back to the village. Everyone was happy. King Dimka divided the kingdom into 2 equal parts and gave Obinna 1 part in appreciation. His parents were happy. The village became peaceful and great ever after.